History, as we've been taught to remember it, is a story of ego. We remember the names of the pharaohs because they carved them into mountains. We remember the kings of Sumer because they recorded their wars on clay tablets. But while the rest of the world was worshiping god kings and sharpening bronze blades, one empire was doing something radical. In the fertile floodplains of the Indus and the now lost Saraswati rivers, a population of 5 million was building a utopia. They didn't build monuments to the dead. They built infrastructure for the living. They created the world's first smart cities, metropolises with grid-patterned streets, multi-story brick houses, and a sanitation system that wouldn't be matched for another 4,000 years. This was the Indus Valley Civilization, a forgotten empire that traded with the world, lived in peace for a millennium, and then vanished into the silt. Tonight, we decode the greatest mystery of the Bronze Age. If you love exploring the deep mysteries of our human story, hit that subscribe button now. We're about to dig into a past that is more advanced than you ever imagined. To understand the Indus Valley, you must first understand the grid. While the contemporary cities of Mesopotamia and Egypt grew like tangled weeds, winding, narrow, and chaotic, the cities of the Indus were born from a blueprint. Look at the street beneath us. It is 30 feet wide, perfectly straight, and aligned to the cardinal directions. This wasn't just for aesthetics. The engineers of Mohenjo-daro were the first to weaponize the wind. By aligning these massive boulevards north to south and east to west, they created a natural vacuum. When the prevailing winds swept through these corridors, they functioned as a primitive but brilliant form of air conditioning and a citywide cleaning system, sucking dust and heat out of the urban core. Every intersection is a precise 90-degree angle, dividing the metropolis into rectangular blocks, much like a modern Manhattan or a giant chessboard. But the true genius, the smart in this smart city, lies in what the citizens never saw. Beneath these paved footpaths was the most advanced drainage system of the ancient world. Every drop of water was accounted for. This was a civilization obsessed with the flow of waste. Let's follow the journey of a single drop of waste. It begins in a private bathroom, a luxury found in nearly every home, regardless of size. The water hits a sloped floor made of carefully fitted bricks, flowing into a terracotta pipe embedded directly into the thick masonry of the walls. The pipe carries the waste down the exterior of the house into a small, open street gutter. But it doesn't stay there. These gutters are precisely sloped to maintain a constant gravity-fed flow. They lead into larger covered main drains that run along the center of the streets. These tunnels are architectural marvels, built from kiln-fired bricks and sealed with a sophisticated mortar of lime and gypsum to prevent any seepage into the city's clean groundwater. Every few hundred feet, the engineers placed a manhole, a tapered, removable stone slab. This allowed city maintenance crews to descend and clear blockages. They even built soak pits, deep chambers designed to catch solid waste, allowing the liquid to filter out and flow away from the city. This wasn't just plumbing, it was public health on an industrial scale, implemented 4,000 years before London or Paris would catch up. Finally, we reach the heart of the citadel, the Great Bath. It is 39 feet long, 23 feet wide, and nearly 8 feet deep. To look at it today is to see a ruin, but 5,000 years ago, it was a shimmering blue jewel of sacred engineering. The challenge was simple but immense: How do you hold thousands of gallons of water in a brick tank without a single leak? The Harappan answer was bitumen. This was a natural tar, a fossil fuel byproduct imported from hundreds of miles away. The engineers applied a 1-inch thick coat of this black bitumen over a layer of gypsum mortar. This created a completely watertight, elastic seal that could withstand the immense pressure of the water. On top of this, they laid a final decorative and protective layer of tightly fitted bricks. A dedicated well in the next room provided a constant supply of fresh water, while a massive corbelled drain at the bottom allowed the tank to be emptied and cleaned periodically. It was a masterpiece of hydraulic engineering. But why go to such lengths? In the absence of grand temples or palaces, the Great Bath suggests a society where the ritual of purification, the simple act of being clean, was the highest form of worship. They built a world of perfect angles and flowing water, a utopia of brick and tar. But as we will see, even the most perfect grid cannot hold back the shifting of the earth itself. In every other cradle of civilization, power left a shadow. In Egypt, it was the colossal tombs of the pharaohs. In Mesopotamia, it was the golden palaces of the warrior kings. But here, in the Indus Valley, power is invisible. We have unearthed more than 1,400 sites, and yet not a single grand temple, not a single royal palace, and not a single monument to a conqueror has ever been found. But do not mistake this lack of a king for a lack of order. The Indus people possessed a central administration so efficient it would make a modern bureaucracy blush. Look closely at the dirt. Across 1.3 million square kilometers, an area larger than Egypt and Mesopotamia combined, every single city used the exact same mathematical ratio for their bricks, 4 to 2 to 1. This wasn't just a preferred shape, it was a civil obsession. Whether you were building a 2-story luxury home in Mohenjo-daro or a drainage channel in a small village 600 miles away, the brick was identical. This ratio, twice as wide as it is thick and twice as long as it is wide, is the perfect geometric formula for stability. To enforce this standard over 5 million people across 3 modern countries suggests a silent authority capable of absolute regulation. But the true shadow of their authority is found in their scales. The Indus people developed a binary weight system that was the gold standard of the Bronze Age. They didn't just guess, they calculated. Their weights followed a strict mathematical progression: 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and 64. The base unit, the 1, weighed approximately 28 grams, nearly identical to a modern ounce. By using this doubling system, they could measure the smallest bead of carnelian or the largest shipment of barley with the same terrifying precision. It was a universal language of value. If a merchant from Lothal sailed to a market in Harappa, he knew his weight was the same, his money was the same, and his word was backed by a mathematical law. It was a society without a king, yes, but it was a society governed by the absolute rule of the scale. If the architecture is the body of the civilization, their script is its soul, and it is a soul that refuses to speak. Ever since the 1920s, there have been over 100 attempts to decipher the Indus script. Every single one has failed. Linguists are faced with a nightmare. We have found between 400 and 600 distinct symbols. For context, the English alphabet has 26. This vast number tells us that the Indus script is likely logosyllabic, meaning each sign represents a word or a sound, much like Egyptian hieroglyphs. But while we can read the story of the pharaohs, the 5,000-year-old voices of the Indus are silent. We know they wrote from right to left. We can see the scribe's frustration where the symbols are squeezed together on the left margin. We have identified patterns like the common jar-shaped symbol that often acts as a full stop or a grammatical ending. But here's the wall that every linguist eventually hits. We have no Rosetta Stone. In Egypt, the Rosetta Stone provided a translation between the unknown hieroglyphs and the known ancient Greek. In the Indus, we have no bridge. We find Indus seals in Mesopotamia, used by merchants to write their own names in the Indus script, like writing a Hindi name in Latin letters. But these Mesopotamian records only give us the name Meluha for the Indus region. They do not give us the key to the language itself. Is this a language of gods or a ledger of taxes? We have found a massive signboard in Dolavira with 10 giant characters, perhaps the world's first billboard. But we cannot read what it advertises. We are staring at the records of 5 million people, yet we don't know a single one of their names, their prayers, or their laws. Modern computer analysis suggests these symbols follow the same entropic patterns as spoken language. It is a code that is waiting to be cracked. But until we find that one bilingual tablet, that one ancient Google Translate, the people of the Indus will remain the most sophisticated yet most silent ghosts in human history.
For nearly a century, we were told a story of a massacre. In 1953, Sir Mortimer Wheeler stood among these very ruins and pointed to these scattered bones as evidence of a great war. He spoke of an Aryan invasion, a horde of chariot-riding warriors from the north who put the peaceful Indus cities to the sword, ending 1,000 years of peace in a single night of fire. It was a theory that fit perfectly into colonial narratives of conquest. But history, when viewed through the lens of modern paleoforensics, tells a far more tragic and complex story. When Dr. Kenneth Kennedy and other scientists re-examined these remains in the 1990s, the battle wounds vanished. Those supposed sword strokes, they were nothing more than the slow, relentless work of erosion, the earth itself wearing down the bone over 5 millennia. These people weren't victims of a foreign army. DNA analysis and archaeological layers show no sharp break in culture, no genetic shift, and no mass graves typical of a war zone. The real killer didn't carry a blade. It was a hydro-catastrophe that reshaped the map of Asia. Starting around 1900 BCE, the monsoons, the heartbeat of the Indus world, began to weaken and shift. Tectonic upheavals deep underground diverted the Yamuna and the Sutlej, essentially stealing the water from the heart of the empire. The great Saraswati Gargar Hakra River, which supported hundreds of settlements, didn't just flood. It began to disappear into a bed of white, cracked salt. Imagine the slow-motion horror of several generations. Year after year, the floods grew too erratic for sustainable farming. The legendary 4:1 brick ratio, that symbol of empire-wide perfection, began to falter. Newer buildings became smaller, poorly constructed with repurposed bricks. The grand sewers of Mohenjo-daro, once the envy of the ancient world, filled with garbage and silt. Public administration collapsed because the economy, built on the surplus of the river, had simply run dry. This wasn't a sudden snap of the fingers. It was a slow, agonizing erasure. The people realized
They walked away from their multi-story smart cities and their flush toilets, trading the grand life of the metropolis for the survival of the village. They didn't die out, they transformed.
The Indus Valley Civilization is often called lost. But look at the modern world. When you see a sacred peepal tree being worshipped, or a hand raised in a namaste, or a line of sindoor in a woman's hair, you are looking at the living ghost of the Indus. Their cities are ruins, and their script is silent. But their cultural DNA, their obsession with hygiene, their urban concepts, their very rituals, is the foundation of South Asian life today. But they also left us a mirror. They built a utopia of water and brick that stood for 1,000 years longer than our own modern civilization has existed. And yet, they fell because they were tied to a climate that changed faster than they could adapt. In an era of rising temperatures and drying rivers, the silence of the Indus is no longer a mystery. It is a warning.
The greatest secret of the Indus people is still locked away in those 400 signs they left behind. With AI now beginning to analyze the patterns of their script, I have to ask you, do you think we will ever crack the code? Or is their language a bridge that has been burned forever? Let me know your theories in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're ready to see how the story of India began even earlier, click the video on the left to explore the 8,000-year-old mysteries of Mehrgar. If you want to see how this compares to the wars of Mesopotamia, click the video on the right. And if you haven't joined us yet, subscribe. The past is still speaking. We just have to learn how to listen.